Why did he leave you? That question can feel like a dagger, can't it? You sit there playing the what-if game. What if I'd been more patient? What if I'd supported him differently? What if I'd just been enough? But let me stop you right there. I want you to take a deep breath, because today we're going to get real. This isn't going to be a video about quick fixes or telling you to just move on. No, we're going deeper than that. Because I know how this feels. I've seen it up close. I've watched people I care about wrestle with the heartbreak of someone walking away. One of my closest friends, let's call her Sarah, went through this exact thing. Her boyfriend left after 3 years, and she was shattered. She thought she had done everything right. She gave her love, her energy, her time, but he still left. She kept asking, why wasn't I enough? That's where most of us go wrong, thinking it's about us. But it's not. His decision to leave had more to do with him, his insecurities, his struggles, than with anything Sarah did or didn't do. If you've been through this, or you're going through it right now, I want you to know this. It's not about your worth. And by the end of this video, I'll show you why. Together, we'll explore why he left, what his decision says about him, and how you can turn this pain into strength. And before we dive in, let me just say this. If this video resonates with you, if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. Let's start a conversation in the comments. Tell me your story, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe, because these are the conversations we need to be having. The pain of rejection and the role of perception. Let's start with the hardest part, the pain. When someone leaves, it doesn't just feel like they're walking away from the relationship. It feels like they're walking away from you. That sting of rejection can cut deeper than almost anything else because it challenges the core of who you are. I saw this firsthand with Sarah, my friend who called me in tears after her boyfriend left. She kept saying, "What's wrong with me? I gave him everything and it still wasn't enough." Her pain wasn't just about losing him, it was about what his leaving said about her, or at least what she thought it said. This is where your mind plays tricks on you. The human brain is wired to find patterns and assign meaning to everything, especially pain. When he left, your brain likely jumped to the conclusion that it must be me, I wasn't enough. But let me stop you there. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." His leaving wasn't a judgment of your worth. It was a reflection of his struggles, his fears, or even his inability to handle what you brought to the table. Sarah's boyfriend Mark told her, "I need space to figure myself out." But the truth? Sarah was thriving. She had goals, dreams, and a clear sense of direction. And instead of being inspired by her, Mark felt like he was falling short. Every moment he spent with her reminded him of what he wasn't doing in his own life. Epictetus said, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." Sarah wasn't the problem. Mark's perception of himself was. This is what I told her, and it's what I'll tell you. People often leave not because of who you are, but because of what being with you forces them to confront about themselves. Your strength, your ambition, your love. These aren't flaws. But to someone who isn't ready to face their own insecurities, they can feel like a threat. The Stoics teach us to separate what's within our control from what isn't. You couldn't control his decision to leave, but you can control the story you tell yourself about it. Is this a story about your inadequacy? Or is it a story about his inability to meet you where you were? Because the truth is, rejection doesn't define your worth. It reveals someone else's capacity or lack of capacity to rise to the level of what you offered. And once you realize this, you'll start to see his leaving not as a reflection of your flaws, but as a chapter in a story where you are the main character. His reasons beyond the surface. Now let's dig into the big question. Why did he leave? Not the excuse he gave you, but the deeper, unspoken reasons. Because let's be honest, what he told you probably wasn't the full story. Take Sarah's boyfriend, Mark. On the surface, he said, "I need space to figure myself out." That sounds logical, even reasonable, right? But here's the thing, when someone says something that vague, it usually means they don't fully understand their own reasons for leaving. Mark wasn't just leaving Sarah. He was running from the discomfort her success and clarity brought him. Sarah is ambitious, driven, and clear about her goals. She made plans for the future, while Mark was stuck in a loop of self-doubt. Every time Sarah talked about her dreams, it wasn't just conversation for him. It was a reminder of what he wasn't doing. Her growth became a mirror, reflecting his own insecurities. Epictetus put it perfectly. People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them. Sarah wasn't the problem. Mark's perception of himself was. Here's the hard truth. Sometimes people leave not because of what you lack, but because of what you reveal about them. Your strengths, your ambitions, even your love, these can be intimidating to someone who isn't ready to rise to the same level. Think about it this way. Relationships act as mirrors. They reflect our best qualities, but they also bring our insecurities to the surface. For some people, this is motivating. It pushes them to grow. But for others, it's overwhelming. Instead of confronting their fears or shortcomings, they take the easier path. They walk away. That's not on you. That's on them. And here's where Stoic philosophy comes in. Marcus Aurelius said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed." Now apply this to him. Did he stay and face his truth, or did he run from it? His leaving wasn't about your worth. It was about his inability to confront his own struggles. So stop torturing yourself, trying to figure out what you could have done differently. You might have been perfect, but he wasn't ready to match your energy. His reasons are about him, not you. And here's the real question you should be asking. If he couldn't handle your strength, your love, and your authenticity, was he ever really the right person to stay? Because the right person doesn't see your growth as a threat. They see it as something to grow alongside. The illusion of control. Let's talk about the one thing that keeps so many people stuck after a breakup, the illusion of control. That belief that if you'd just done something differently, if you'd been more patient, more supportive, or less demanding, maybe he would have stayed. It's a thought that eats at you, isn't it? Because if you can convince yourself you had control, then maybe, just maybe, you could have changed the outcome. I've seen this firsthand. Sarah, my friend, kept saying, "What if I hadn't pushed him so much about his career? What if I'd just given him more space when he seemed stressed?" She was stuck in this cycle of self-blame, constantly trying to rewrite history in her mind. But here's what I told her, and what I'll tell you, you never had control over his choices. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." What does that mean? It means people make their own decisions based on their own fears, insecurities, and motivations. You can't force someone to stay who's already halfway out the door. Think about it. If you're bending over backward to make someone happy, to keep them from leaving, are you really in control? Or are you trying to control something that was never within your power to begin with? Sarah couldn't control Mark's feelings of inadequacy. She couldn't control his decision to leave. And neither can you in your situation. What you can control is how you respond to it. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them." You can't control that he left, but you can control how much power you give to his absence. Here's the hard truth. The illusion of control is comforting because it keeps us focused on the past. But living in the past doesn't change it. It just steals your energy and stops you from moving forward. Sarah spent months replaying her relationship with Mark, trying to figure out what went wrong. And every time she thought she found an answer, another doubt crept in. That's what the illusion of control does. It keeps you stuck in a loop, chasing something you'll never actually catch. So let me ask you this: what would happen if you let go? Not just of him, but of the idea that you could have done anything differently. The Stoics teach us to focus on what's within our control. That's your mindset, your actions, your growth. Everything else, his decisions, his reasons, his leaving, is outside your reach. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you'll start to find peace. It's not easy, I know that. Letting go feels like giving up, like surrendering, but it's not. It's freedom. Freedom from the weight of trying to control what was never yours to control. And in that freedom, you'll find the strength to rebuild. Not for him, but for you. The dark side of grief, why you're holding on. Let's get real. Letting go isn't just hard. Sometimes it feels downright impossible. After someone leaves, especially someone you care deeply about, there's a part of you that clings to the pain. I remember talking to Sarah about this not long after Mark left. She kept replaying their last conversation, holding on to every word, every detail. She wasn't just holding on to him, she was holding on to the hurt. And when I asked her why, she said something that stuck with me. If I stop thinking about him, it feels like he's really gone. This is the dark side of grief. Your mind convinces you that holding on to the pain keeps you connected to them, that if you can just keep replaying the memories, you're not really letting go. But here's the truth. That pain isn't a bridge to him. It's a chain holding you back. Psychologists have a term for this, a trauma bond. It's when your brain equates the depth of your suffering with the depth of your connection. It tricks you into believing, if I feel this much, it must mean the relationship was real, that it mattered. But the Stoics saw this differently. Epictetus said, "When you are offended at any man's fault, turn to yourself and study your own failings. Then you will forget your anger." Now, I don't think Sarah was angry at Mark, but she was angry at herself. Angry for not seeing the signs, for investing so much of herself, for feeling like she failed. That anger and hurt became her anchor, keeping her tied to the past. But here's the thing, that anchor isn't holding on to him. It's holding on to a version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore. Because the moment he left, you changed. You were forced to face a world without him in it. And while that's painful, it's also the beginning of something new. Let's take a step back for a second. Ask yourself, why are you really holding on? Is it because you think he'll come back? Or is it because letting go feels like erasing what you had? Sarah told me, if I let go, it feels like those 3 years didn't mean anything. But I reminded her of something Seneca said. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. Letting go isn't erasing the past. It's making space for what comes next. I'm not saying this is easy. Grief has a way of wrapping itself around you, convincing you that letting go is a betrayal of what you felt. But holding onto that pain only serves one purpose. It keeps you stuck. Here's a question I asked Sarah, and I'll ask you the same. What are you afraid will happen if you let go? Are you scared of the emptiness, the quiet, the reality of starting over? Because if that's the case, then his leaving isn't the problem. It's what his absence has uncovered in you. And this is where the Stoics truly shine. They teach us to look inward, to confront the fears and insecurities we avoid. Epictetus reminds us, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Letting go isn't about forgetting him, it's about reclaiming yourself. Because here's the truth, his leaving has already changed your life. The question is, will you let that change destroy you or build you into something stronger? Reclaiming your power, the Stoic way forward. So here you are, he's gone, and you're left standing in the aftermath. Maybe you're still replaying everything in your head. Maybe you're starting to let go, or maybe you're somewhere in between. Wherever you are right now, I want you to hear this. You have more power than you realize. Sarah, my friend who struggled after her boyfriend left, didn't believe this at first. She felt broken, like she'd lost a piece of herself. But over time, she started to see what I'd been telling her all along. His leaving wasn't the end of her story. It was just the end of a chapter, and she had the power to write the next one. The Stoics teach us that true power comes from focusing on what's within your control. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." So what does that look like in practice? How do you reclaim your power when it feels like someone took it from you? Let me break it down for you step by step. Radical acceptance. The first step is acceptance, not just of the fact that he's gone, but of the reality that you can't change the past. This is one of the hardest things to do because your mind wants to keep fighting it, rewriting it, fixing it, controlling it. Sarah struggled with this for weeks. She kept saying, I just wish I could go back and do things differently. But wishing for the past to be different is like wishing for the rain to fall upward. It's not going to happen. Seneca said, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." When you accept what's happened, you stop being dragged by the pain and you start moving forward willingly. Acceptance doesn't mean you agree with what happened. It means you acknowledge it as reality and make peace with it. Self-inquiry. The next step is to turn the lens inward. Instead of asking, "Why did he leave?" ask, "What can I learn from this?" When Sarah started doing this, she realized something profound. She'd spent so much energy trying to make Mark happy that she'd neglected her own happiness. She'd built her life around his needs, his dreams, his insecurities. And when he left, it forced her to ask a hard question. Who am I without him? This kind of self-inquiry isn't easy. It's uncomfortable. But as the Stoics believed, discomfort is often the path to growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power to strip away many superfluous troubles, for they lie entirely in your own opinion." What's weighing you down right now, and how much of it is something you can let go of? 3. Detachment from the fantasy. One of the most liberating things Sarah did was let go of the fantasy of what could have been. She realized she wasn't just mourning the loss of Mark. She was mourning the life she thought they would build together. This is a trap we all fall into. You're not just grieving the person, you're grieving the version of the future you imagined with them. But here's the thing, that future wasn't real. It was a possibility, not a promise. Seneca reminds us, begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life. Letting go of the fantasy isn't about giving up hope. It's about freeing yourself to create a new, better reality, one that isn't tied to someone who chose to leave. 4. Build resilience through action. Finally, the most important step, start rebuilding. Not for him, not to prove anything to anyone, but for yourself. Sarah started small. She joined a new class, reconnected with friends she hadn't seen in a while, and started pursuing goals she'd put on hold during her relationship. These weren't grand gestures, they were simple steps. But with each one, she felt stronger. The Stoics believed that resilience isn't something you're born with. It's something you build through action. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." His leaving might feel like a roadblock, but what if it's actually your path forward? What if the strength you need is waiting on the other side of the actions you take now? So how do you reclaim your power? By shifting your focus from what you've lost to what you can create. Accept what's happened, learn from it, let go of the fantasy, and start building a life that's so full, so rich, that his absence feels like a chapter, not the whole story. Sarah did it, and today she's happier, stronger, and more grounded than ever. And you can do it too. Because here's the truth. The person who left isn't the one who defines your story. You do, and the only person you ever needed to stay was you. Turning pain into power. So here's where we are. He left. That's a fact. It happened. And no amount of overthinking, self-blame, or wishful thinking will change that. But what happens next? That's entirely up to you. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." His leaving might feel like a roadblock, but maybe it's the very thing you needed to step into your own power. Because let's be honest, if he wasn't ready to grow alongside you, then he wasn't your person. And that's not your failure. It's his truth. Now take a deep breath. Let this sink in. His leaving isn't your ending, it's your opportunity to write a new chapter, one where you're the hero, the main character, the one who doesn't just survive but thrives. So I want you to do something right now. Think about one small step you can take today to move forward. It doesn't have to be life-changing. It could be journaling your thoughts, calling a friend, or even taking a walk to clear your mind. What matters is that you start moving, even if it's just an inch. And remember this, you are not defined by the person who left. You're defined by the strength you find in their absence. If this video resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message, maybe a friend, a family member, or someone who's struggling to move on. And let's keep this conversation going. Drop a comment below and tell me your thoughts, what resonated with you, and what are you doing to reclaim your power. And if you're ready to take control of your story and embrace the wisdom of the Stoics, hit that subscribe button. This channel is all about these tough but transformative conversations. Together, we can grow stronger, one step at a time.